Hi students, today we are working in Chapter 9, Lesson 1, Rounding Fractions. Students will be able to use benchmark fractions, such as 1/2, to round fractions. So let's talk about benchmark fractions. A benchmark fraction is a fraction that is very common and is a good fraction to round to. So the most common fraction that people use is the fraction 1/2. We say this all the time, and we probably don't even really think about it. I ate half of my dinner, 1/2. I wear the shoe size 6.5, 6 1/2. Yesterday, we got 9.5 inches of snow. There again is 1/2. We use this fraction so often. A lot of times when we say 1/2, we are just doing an estimate or we're rounding an amount. For example, if I say that I ate half of my dinner last night, I didn't go and measure my dinner and weigh it. I'm just looking at it and saying it's about half of my plate that I ate. Or if I say that we got 9.5 inches of snow, maybe we did get exactly 9 1/2, but chances are we got somewhere around 9 1/2. 1/2 is very easy to visualize. It's 1 out of 2. It's easy to visualize. So we use 1/2 as a benchmark fraction. So I want to show you what 1/2 looks like. And I'm also going to compare 1/2 to 0 and 1. So I'm using my fraction strips to show you this. The first fraction strip is representing 0. There's nothing shaded in. The second fraction is representing 1/2. 1 out of 2, or 1/2, is shaded in. And my third fraction strip shows 1 whole, or 2 out of 2. This is where we're going to round our fractions. So if a fraction is closer to 0 than it is to the other amounts, we say we round it to 0. If it's close to half, we say it's close to a half. And if it's almost all the way shaded in, we say it's close to being a whole. So let's do some of these. We'll start out with this guy. So to figure out what this fraction is, I'm going to count my equal parts. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 equal parts. So 10 is my denominator. And I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 shaded in. So I have the fraction 9/10. And I want to see if 9/10 is closest to 0, a half, or a whole. So let's see. I'm looking at my shaded amount. Well, it's definitely not close to 0. It's a lot more than a whole, a half. And you can see that when I match it up to my whole, it's almost the entire amount. So I would round 9/10 to 1 whole. It's close to being all of the way filled in. Let's look at another fraction. This fraction has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 equal parts, and 2 of them are shaded. So it's the fraction 2/5. Let's figure out what this is closest to. Well, I don't think it's close to being a whole, because a whole would be all the way to the end, and this is not very close to being to the end. So is it closer to being 0 or a half? Let's see, here's a half, and it is pretty close to the halfway mark. In fact, it's closer to the halfway mark than it would be to the beginning. So this fraction, 2/5, is close to a half. So I would round 2/5 to 1/2 and say that it rounds to 1/2. Okay, let's do another one. Let's take this fraction. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 equal parts, and 1 of them is shaded in. Well, if I compare that with my whole, it's definitely not close to a whole because I would need more of these to be shaded. So I'm looking at a half or 0. Is this red fraction 1/6 closer to being halfway colored in or not at all colored in? It's closer to being not at all colored in because there's only this amount of shaded area out of that entire strip. So 1/6 rounds down to 0. All right, let's look at another one. For this fraction, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 equal pieces, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 are shaded in. So is it closer to 0, a half, or a whole? Well, I'm going to eliminate 0 because there's definitely amount shaded in. So is it closer to being halfway shaded in or all of the way shaded in? You can see that this line actually matches up for the halfway mark, and it's actually just a tiny bit bigger than a half. So we would say that it rounds closer to 1/2. Notice I'm not putting an equal sign because they're not equal. I'm just saying that it moves over to 1/2. It rounds to 1/2. All right, let's try one more. For this fraction, I have 1, 2, 3, 4 equal parts and 3 shaded in, 3/4. So what is it closer to? I can eliminate 0 because we definitely have some shading happening there. So is it closer to 1/2 or 1/2? Well, for this one, it's actually right in the middle of my second half, if that makes sense. So here's the second half, and it's in the middle. So some people might say, you know what, it's closer to a half. Other people might say it's closer to the whole thing. And because it's in the middle, they're technically both correct. However, I think a lot of people, when we are stuck in the middle with rounding, round up, okay? So when that happens, if it's right in between, I always say to round it up. So I would say that 3/4 is close to 1/2. If you were thinking it's close to 1/2, you're not wrong. I would mark that as correct. I just think a lot of people tend to round it up when they're stuck in the middle. So can we do this without fraction strips? Well, of course we can. Of course we can. Let's say we have the fraction 6/7. Is 6/7 closer to 0, a half, or 1/2? And I'm just drawing a very basic number line here. So imagine 6 out of 7. You got 6 out of 7 right on a test. 6 out of 7 students won the lottery. That's almost everything, right? 7 out of 7 is 1/2. So 6 out of 7 is really close to being a whole. 6 out of 7 would be right about here. Okay, 6 out of 7 is close to 1/2. So when we round it, we would round it to 1. Let's try another. Now I'm using some larger numbers in my numerator and denominator just to give us a good idea of how we can do this. I have 10 21s. Not a very common fraction that we deal with, but it's good to get us thinking. 10 out of 21. 10 out of 21. Well, I don't think it's very close to 0 because we have 10 out of 21. If it were a whole, it would be 21 out of 21. So 21 out of 21 equals 1/2. We have 10 out of 21. Well, guess 10 is about half of 21. If this was a 20, 10 is half of that. So 10 out of 21 is really close to being half. It's actually right before the halfway mark. So I would round 10 over 21 to a half. And let's do one more. Let's say we have 3/11. Imagine 3 out of 11. This could be a quiz grade. Oops. That's really not halfway through. That was bad drawing. There we go. That could be a quiz grade, okay? That might mean that at an animal rescue center, there are 11 animals and 3 of them got adopted by a family, 3 out of 11. So we're thinking, is that closer to being none of them, half of them, or all of them? Well, remember, 1 whole for this would be 11/11. And we only have 3/11. That's pretty far away from being a whole. What would a half look like? Half of 11, well, that would give you a fraction, right? Or a decimal, because 11 is odd. But what's close to 11? 10 and 12. So let's see. If I thought of this as far as 10s and 12s, because they're close to 11, half of 10 is 5, and half of 12 is 6. So it would be right in the middle. So it would actually be 5.5 or 5.5. Oops, that would be 11. So this is a 3. So if I'm thinking that half is about 5 or 6, and I only have 3, so if this is 5 or 6 right here, I have about 3 right there. 3/11. So this could be one of the ones where maybe some people say it's close to 0. Maybe some people say it's closer to half. And both of those answers could be okay. Like I said before, when it's kind of in the middle, I usually round to the larger part. So I would say that this is close to a half. If you said it's close to 0, that wouldn't be wrong. Close to 1 is not right. So when we do these rounding fractions and we're thinking of the benchmarks of 0, 1, half, and 1 whole, it might help you to use fraction strips, draw a model. It might help you to draw a number line. It might help you to think of what the whole amount would be and what the half would be and compare it. And all of those strategies can help you to round your fractions. I hope you found this helpful, and I will see you again next time. Bye.